Hey there. It's me, Eden. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to my channel and visit my Patreon page for early access, link in the comment, thanks. Wednesday, July 15th. Lost nail number 3 sometime during the night, and couldn't find it in the bedding this morning. I've been painting the uncovered nails blue, but they are noticeable. I can't say they stick out like a sore thumb, because they don't stick out. It's the other ones that do. Sarah Beth was really surprised. The acrylics are very long-lasting. She wondered if Joan Kim attached them less tightly, to make it easier on me to remove them later. Sarah Beth and I worked out together on some of the exercise machines in PT today. One of the things I haven't mentioned is that in addition to learning how to walk in a new way, she's also building up her arm and upper body strength, so when she uses crutches or the wheelchair, she'll have more endurance. I told her that I needed to work out with her just to make sure that she wouldn't end up being able to beat me at arm wrestling. We had an official conference today with Kevin, Mrs. Berdugo, and Sarah's oncologist, sort of a halfway mark evaluation. Everything looked good. I called Reverend McGrail for an appointment. I'll see her tomorrow. The new kid came today. He was in the living room when we got back from chemo. His mother, a well-dressed lady, was with him. "Hi, I'm Roger," he grinned as he greeted us. "Hi, I'm Julie Holding, but everybody here calls me Annie, because my sister Sarah does." "Nice to meet you, Roger." Sarah said hi too. Roger's a big guy that you could tell used to be bigger. He uses a wheelchair, not because he's paralyzed, he explained, but because the tumor that was just operated on destroyed the hearing in one ear, and totally messed up his balance. He was wearing expensive-looking but well-worn cowboy boots, faded jeans, and a nice denim shirt. His head was shaved, and some still angry-looking scars traced a box on his skull, showing where they had operated. Brain cancer, I had heard. He was only 15. "What's your last name, Roger?" Sarah asked. "Cameron." "Where are you from, Roger Cameron?" I asked. "Cameron." I thought that his hearing problem had caused him to misunderstand my question, so I repeated it more clearly. "No, I heard," he said. "I'm Roger Cameron and I'm from Cameron." "Wow. The whole town's named after you?" Sarah asked. "No. It was named before me. But it was named after my great-great-grandfather." Roger talked even more slowly and with more of a Western drawl than I did in my Julie role, so it took a while to converse. But you could tell that in spite of being a shy kid, he was really enjoying talking with, he thought, 2 teen girls who weren't turned off by his condition. That's one neat thing about Hope Haven. You have to learn to accept people as they are. His mother stayed in the background, but you could tell that she was happy that her son was finding new friends. He had just come over from inpatient status at the Children's Hospital and would be here for several weeks to go over for chemotherapy and physical therapy, a program similar to Sarah Beth's. His chemo would be with heavier doses, though, since the surgery wasn't completely successful. Parts of the cancer had wrapped itself around critical areas, so they couldn't remove it all without destroying vital parts of his brain. The chemo, and later, radiation therapy, could slow or stop the cancer, at least for a while, but the odds weren't good. I was amazed at how open both he and his mother were about the seriousness of his situation. The kid was dying, he knew it, and he was dealing with it. I volunteered to help him in PT. I had some pretty good ideas about what Kevin would want to try to keep his muscles from atrophying. Thursday, July 16th. The prosthetics people were fussing around Sarah Beth today, making adjustments and measurements for the more realistic-looking leg that would replace the mechanical-looking one. Kevin and I spent time with Roger, working up some routines to work with him on. Roger was still so weak from his ordeal was passive exercises, us or machines moving his limbs for him. I asked if water therapy was a possibility. It was, Kevin explained, but they would have to be very careful to compensate for Roger's lack of balance. With the proper flotation devices and an assistant on each side, one of the staff people on one side and me on the other, we could do it, starting next week. As the machine moved Roger's arm, I sat by him and we talked. I didn't know rich kids could be shy and sweet, but Roger was. A lot of kids thought he was stuck up, he told me, and he didn't have many friends. He had wanted to ask a girl that he thought was real pretty to a dance last fall, but he didn't. A tear rolled down his cheek and he said, that was probably my last chance to ever go on a date, and I blew it. I've never even been kissed by a girl, except for Mom, of course, and some obnoxious aunts. I smiled and shook my head. Roger, it would ruin my professional status as an official PT volunteer to plant a big smacker on a client. And besides, I don't kiss on first dates. His eyes grew wide. Oh, no. I wasn't hinting or asking, I'm sorry. I patted the shoulder of the arm that wasn't being cranked up and down by the machine. It's okay, Roger. I knew you didn't mean anything by it. I shouldn't have teased you. I can see your circulation is all better, though. Your face is all red. You're a sweet kid, Roger. We continued to talk. I told him about life in Fort Russell, adapting my own stories into a female context, and throwing in some of Julie's basketball experiences. I told him about my boyfriend. To all the people we talked to, Sarah Beth and I both had boyfriends, and both of them were named Mark, but with different last names, of course. He told me that up until a few months ago, he spent all his spare time on the ranch, working hard in the outdoors and loving the wide-open prairie. After lunch, I changed into the blue floral print skirt and the blouse that went with it, one of the outfits that Mom had brought for me the day after my big makeover. It was attractive but conservative, the kind of thing a girl would wear to go on a job interview, or to talk to a pastor. Sarah Beth was tired and feeling the effects of the chemo, so she stayed in the room and rested. I wasn't sure what I was getting into when I drove to the Presbyterian church near the campus to talk with Reverend McGrail. In a way, I was glad she was a woman minister. It seemed a little less threatening somehow to tell a woman about my situation than telling a man. When I first introduced myself as Annie, she remembered that we had visited the church before with our parents. Oh, yes. I remember how delighted I was that you all chose to worship with us. You looked like such a nice family. Then I was disappointed when the guest register showed you lived out of town. Now that I know you and your sister are at Hope Haven, I'll be glad to come by and visit. It really got her attention when I swore her to secrecy, confidentiality, she called it, and told her I was not only Annie, I was Mark. She explained later that at first she thought I might have a multiple personality disorder, then gender dysphoria, being miserable and feeling out of place in the gender one's born into. I had the feeling that she could handle either situation without losing her cool, and soon began comfortable talking with this tiny woman with half glasses and short gray hair. She mostly listened, which is what I mostly needed, just to have somebody to talk to. When she did talk, she gave me a lot to think about. It helped me surface and be able to name a lot of feelings I had stirring around. Here are some comments I want to remember. The tension you live under must be terrific. You've talked about the tension of being discovered, the tension of having to misrepresent who you are and to lie to cover up who you are, when you are clearly not a dishonest person. Then there's the sexual tension of being Sarah's boyfriend while trying to be her sister. You are so utterly believable as Annie, in all the little things. I once knew a man who wanted to be a woman, and he even got to the point of living as one full-time, but you are more believable than he was. I think it's because he wanted to be the sexy, glamorous woman that he fantasized about, and you're just a nice, ordinary, pleasant girl. You've come to like Annie quite a lot, haven't you? I know that you are doing all this for your love of Sarah, but I'd say that Annie has become another girl in your life. When you answer questions or supply information to others about Annie, you say that you answer for Julie when it comes to questions about your past, but you answer for Annie, with a little bit of Mark mixed in, when it comes to how you're feeling or what you want to do now. Interesting. In a way, you don't see yourself as being dishonest, because you are so deep into your Annie role that you really see yourself as her. I'm concerned about your transition back to Mark. I know that you want to live as Mark again, but I don't think that you can just switch Annie off like you'd turn off a light. I'm not suggesting that you wear dresses, or anything, but you've changed your whole emotional frame of reference, and you can't deny to your inner self that that has happened. I suspect that there's a lot about Annie that you would do well to accept and incorporate into Mark. No, I don't mean the obvious things, like wardrobe or feminine mannerisms, that could get you in a lot of trouble. But Annie has some wonderful qualities that I'm sure were there in Mark, but maybe not as near the surface. We agreed to see each other again, and that it would help to have at least one three-way session, with Sarah Beth joining us. It was a big relief to me to have permission from an objective outsider that it was okay for me to like being Annie, that this wasn't somehow betraying or endangering Mark. I got back in time to take Sarah on a walk before supper, so we could talk freely about what I'd discovered. Sarah looked back from her wheelchair at me, and said, "I'm glad you like Annie, Mark." I never realized either how she'd take on this much of a life of her own. When we're back together at home as Mark and Sarah, I'll really be happy. But it makes me feel good to know that Annie will always be a part of you, too. I couldn't help but kiss her. Friday, July 17th. Every afternoon after we get back from chemo or our other afternoon schedules, I shave, and then put on new makeup for the rest of the day. My beard isn't heavy, but it is dark enough I don't want it to show through. The past few days, Sarah has come to the bathroom door and watched me, smiling, as I strip down to my panties. No, I didn't bring any guy's underwear, too much of a security risk. Clean off the old makeup, lather up, and start mowing down my whiskers. "Whatcha doing?" I asked, as she sat there. "Standing guard, or sitting guard. And I like to watch you do that." "Why?" "Most of the time I need you to be Annie, because Annie keeps me safe and sane around here," she said in a very soft voice, so nobody walking by in the hallway could hear. "But I miss Mark, and now, if I ignore the blue panties and blue nails, it's Mark I see. I love you, Mark." I went over and kissed her, smearing her face with shaving cream in the process. She kissed back, and didn't pull away. "But please," she whispered, "we'd better stay safe. It's time to be Annie again." Saturday, July 18th. Every Saturday morning, Sarah Beth and I make our way down to the laundry room and do our week's worth of laundry. I'm getting to be quite the washerwoman. I tote, she sorts, I toss the stuff from machine to machine, she folds, and lately, I've been ironing. It's easier for me to stand, so she's taught me all the tricks. I'm pretty good at it, too. It's all a new experience for me. Mom usually does all the laundry, Dad's not a slouch with housework, don't get me wrong, so I had a lot to learn. It's a great time just to be together, to relax, and to talk. It's funny how you can enjoy just doing the ordinary things together, like folding undies. Julie came in as we were finishing, and helped us carry the stuff upstairs. She had got Jen a ride over this weekend, instead of parental units. One of them had to work Saturday. She had asked if she could take the car back to Westlands with her, because she needed it for some college functions. We met her at a mall and ate lunch together. Sarah and I both wore western-cut long denim skirts and white blouses. We wore our wigs. Julie promised us a special treat and drove us to a full-service beauty and nail shop. Oh, no. Since it was a short distance from the lot to the shop, Sarah walked, using her walker. For Sarah, it was to be a facial, a wig styling and tinting, and a manicure. We didn't want them to touch my makeup, since this time the operators didn't know about my male identity. She signed me up for a replacement set of nails, a pedicure, and an eyebrow trim. The wax job from my initial makeover had gone by the wayside, and Sarah had been plucking new hairs out to keep me presentable, a major ouch. The nail tech, a middle-aged blonde named Augusta, call me Gussie, began tinkering and puttering on my nails. I explained that I would need to remove them in 2 weeks because of a new job. If you're only going to keep them for 2 weeks, do you want to play around with some longer ones? Gussie asked with a bright smile. She pointed to her own multicolored claws, at least half an inch longer than mine. I saw Julie grin. No. I almost shouted. Then I smiled. No, thank you. I'm doing volunteer work at the Children's Hospital, and I was thinking I might go shorter this time. Gussie nodded. Come on, Annie, Julie said. It's just for 2 more weeks. They've been your trademark this long. And they go so well with that fashion statement hairdo of yours. I gave in and agreed to keep the nails at their previous length. Julie offered to pay for an airbrush job so I could get a new look on them. Okay, but it has to be something in blue. That's a trademark, too. We talked about it a while and came up with a terrific idea. Gussie started with a dark midnight blue near the base, and then blended in lighter shades, through royal blue and a light blue near my previous color, to a blue-white tip, almost a spectrum effect. Julie was impressed. When you take those off, Annie, keep them and lock them away in a little treasure chest to remember them by. They're pieces of art. I hadn't had a pedicure before, but it felt good to have Gussie work on my feet. She painted the toenails in solid colors, but kept the spectrum effect across my toes, working from midnight blue on my big toes to near white on the 2 outbounds. Then I changed chairs for the eyebrow waxing. This I wasn't looking forward to, but it would save the pain of daily plucking for a while. She brushed on the wax, let it harden, and yanked it off, on each brow. Ouch again. Oops, the operator mumbled. I did not like the sound of that. Oops? I asked. The operator stared at me intently, then smiled. Not to worry. They look great. I know that you didn't want any more taken out than you had previously, though, and the wax spread a little more than I thought it would. But I do think they look better, though. I looked in the mirror. My once bushy brows, trimmed and shaped a month ago, were definitely more feminine, still not ultra-thin fashion model feminine, but they added a certain daintiness to my face that wouldn't be welcome when I got my old body back in 2 weeks. But what could I do? Ask her to put them back in? So I just smiled graciously and agreed they looked very nice. When Sarah Beth saw me, she just raised her own eyebrow a bit. The beautician tinted my brows a little darker, so they were more near my natural color. In the car, though, I angrily asked Julie. Did you put her up to this with my eyebrows? She had played enough tricks on me that I was suspicious. No, Annie. Really, I didn't. It was an honest mistake. If you feel self-conscious about them when we get back home and get you back to manliness, I'll show you how to fill them out with an eyebrow pencil. Then she grinned. But since you shaved your head, we could just shave off the eyebrows, too, and that would solve the problem. That might be better, I thought. It would look goofy, but not girlish. No. Sarah shouted. I like his eyebrows. And Annie and Mark, when you do go back to looking like Mark, you don't have to keep your head shaved just for my sake. I'm not as gutsy as you or Amanda about my appearance, and when I get home among the kids I'll have to go to school with, I plan on wearing my wig. She pointed at the freshly styled one on her head. The beautician had done a nice job of giving it a more teen-friendly, natural look. And the color was close enough to Sarah's own, though not quite there, in my estimation. And you being bald to be in solidarity with me is a wonderful, romantic gesture, but it will just call other kids' attention to the fact that I'm bald underneath this. I like your hair, and I want to be able to run my fingers through it again. And besides, your senior pictures are coming up in less than 2 months. I don't want people to think you're a skinhead. Sarah Beth hath spoken. She was right, too. A bald head and girlish eyebrows wouldn't look too great together on a guy. I don't think that I'll wear the 5 earrings for the photo shoot either. Julie dropped us off around the corner from Hope Haven and drove back to college. Please subscribe for the next part and visit my Patreon page for early access. Link in the comment, thanks.